countryside.
G'day, I'm Mal Leyland. My wife Lorraine, our daughter Carmen and her husband Robert have already completed one full circuit of Australia on an odyssey that most people only dream of. And the adventure continues.
The Leyland's Australia.
We film our own gypsy highway lifestyle as we undertake an endless journey of discovery.
Let the Leylands show you the way. The Leylands will show you Australia. Let the Leylands show you the way.
3 years ago, we set off on an adventure which has taken us right around Australia. We left Brisbane and travelled in an anti-clockwise direction, passing through a huge variety of landforms. Our quest has been to investigate the true character of our nation, to meet its people, examine our history, explore the deserts, the mountains and the coastline, to see it all. We certainly discovered a country of diverse appeal, but our 3-year quest could only touch the surface. So now we have returned to Brisbane to re-equip ourselves and continue this expedition of discovery. Driving in the city after about 100,000 kilometres of open roads and outback towns is a bit daunting at first. Carmen and Robert take delivery of a new 24-foot caravan built to their own specific requirements. In this program, we will travel north along the Bruce Highway. Along the way, we'll meet a man who makes baskets from jungle vine, come face to face with giants of the sea, meet a couple of snail hunters, see why Bundaberg is proud of its pioneering aviators and its sugar industry, visit the picturesque town of 1770 and arrive in Rockhampton. Our first stop is a small village on the Sunshine Coast just off the highway called Umundi. We've arranged to meet a man who comes to this small town once a week on Sundays. Sunday is one of the busiest days of the week for Umundi because Sunday is market day, and this market is one of the few truly genuine craft markets in Queensland when visitors come face to face with the creative artisans. We're looking for David Webster, a man who has managed to combine conservation of forest trees with his own creativity. He is an artisan, but we've never met him, so we scour the markets in search of his stall. Stall holders here can only sell their wares at these markets if they make it, grow it, or cook it themselves. Like markets the world over, it's a bustling hive of human activity. Eventually, we catch up with David Webster.
Wrestle with it.
His speciality is tough, robust baskets made from jungle vines.
Dries rock hard when it sets. Yeah, it's a strangler vine. Sort of strangles around the trees. Actually pulls them down some of the times. It's a very solid fibre. Sort of like a rope, it's really stringy sort of vine. There's only about 2 varieties of vine where it sets rock hard. It's a very solid fibre. There's a lot of vine where the fibres are hollow and they collapse, but this native grap is a very solid fibre.
David collects the vines himself from the tops of trees, most of which would eventually be strangled if left alone. David likes to work alone and says he enjoys the isolation of the bush when he goes on his vine gathering trips. This is physically demanding work and wouldn't appeal to too many, so it's not surprising he has no assistant. The vine must be fresh, so it's a continuous, ongoing job to keep up the supply of vine. David is a self-taught weaver and ended up doing this almost by accident. He loves it so much, this is all he does now. At one time, David had a friend gather the vine for him, but soon resumed his own collection. David says he missed the bush so much, and it's only when he spent all of his time weaving that he realised it was the whole process he enjoyed, and the sense of solitude and contentment which came with that.
It's the only way to get it is to be up in the trees, because you can pull all the thinner stuff down, you can actually let the light through them. Mum and Dad, we owned a yacht and sort of been all around Australia, and I spent a lot of time up in the Whitsundays, and we used to sort of just spend a lot of time in the bush and sort of on the beaches, and I've always, you know, had the bush and nature with me in my heart, and sort of here I am out in the bush now saving trees, pulling the vine down and killing two birds with one stone.
So how did you actually start making baskets? What was the thing that got you into baskets?
Well, I was sort of working on a property out in the hills out in Kenilworth Way, and we used to clear a lot of land and throw it away basically, and all the vine, and I've seen rustic baskets around, and I thought, you know, I'm wasting this material here, I could be using it. So yeah, just sort of taught myself how to weave the bush baskets, and you know, there was a lot involved in how to prepare the vine and sort of the methods, and it was totally sort of different to weaving a normal cane basket. Yeah, I started first doing this probably about 4 years ago now. You know, my last name means weaver in the meaning of names, so, old Webster. So I never thought I'd be sort of weaving baskets out of all the vine that I used to throw away years ago. You look at that tree? Yeah, like I was saying a couple of days ago, there was this huge big tree, and it's a little bit smaller than this all. Quite a bit smaller than half the size of this one here. And the vine was actually about that round, and it actually pulled down this whole tree and sort of just suffocated it that much. It just pulled it all down, and it was amazing how it did it. You know, the vine was about that thick. And so sort of, you know, it's good to get them, especially young, you know, while the tree's young, to pull the vine off before it sort of strangles around it, because, you know, if you get the tree's young, about a year old, within 2 years that tree will be strangled. It's very important to leave it in the creeks, in the creek beds and things like that, because it actually holds the creek together.
You find yourself looking at trees and thinking there's so many baskets in that tree?
Oh, all the time. Yeah, so it hasn't hit me yet what I'm actually doing, but I just sort of do what I do, and yeah, sort of, it's a good feeling though when you sort of can, you know, actually help a tree sort of live, and yeah, I love doing it.
Gathering the vines is difficult enough, but trekking out of the jungle with the day's harvest is an even bigger job. It's critical to commence the next step in the process as soon as possible, while the sap is still in the vines and they are flexible. David soaks the vines in seawater and uses a mangrove-lined tidal creek to do this. The soaking cures the vines and keeps them pliable for weaving. David once used linseed oil for this job, but a friendly Fijian visitor to the market told him how to cure the vine in the traditional way. Weighted down with heavy rocks, vines from the jungle gathering trip of several days ago are removed from the salt water. The curing process is completed, and David now has his raw material to work with.
So how long does this have to stay in the salt water?
Oh, at least 4 days till it soaks in. Some vine you have to soak for about 3 weeks, because some vines are a lot stronger than others. Yeah, she's a bit of a process in this basket weaving.
David only sells his baskets at the markets and manages to sell all he can make.
So I just taught myself, and I just took off from there, and it's sort of wasting material. So there's a lot of things that people waste these days, and sort of you can make use of what you got, and you know there's a use for everything. And you know, I just sort of love doing it. I love saving the trees and grabbing all the vine and making baskets. And
next we visit Maryborough. Following the coastal Bruce Highway north, we leave Umundi and head for Hervey Bay. In recent times, this once small and sleepy part of the coast has experienced a boom in tourism and is now a major destination with Aussie families on their annual holidays. Picturesque beaches around the bay attract all kinds, boosting the local population of 43,000 quite considerably during the summer tourist season. Most activities are water-based, which is reflected by the modern high-quality marina.
Not all the interest is in the waterfront. The next morning we set out to investigate the region. A not so well-known place to spend a few hours is the 11-hectare lagoons and parkland of Akara Tea Gardens. Here there are several easy walking tracks which allow access to the lagoons.
Oh, the fish! Oh, the fish!
Wildlife encounters are guaranteed with more than 140 species of birds recorded at the gardens, including ducks and the eastern swamp hen, one of our most striking water birds. The long-necked tortoise is common in shallow swamps and waterways right along the eastern coast.
The ducks come in, right?
They're quick to surface and snatch any food on the surface before sinking beneath the murky waters. They can remain submerged for long periods, but they need to come to the surface to breathe. They're quite at home on dry land. The extensive swamps here represent a haven for so many birds that a walk along the tracks that meander along its edges is certain to provide close-up encounters with at least some of them. The largest water bird, and therefore the most conspicuous, is the graceful black swan. When reports of the black swan first reached Europe, it was thought to be a hoax. Swans in the northern hemisphere are white. These large birds prefer to keep to swamps, but do occasionally come ashore to graze on foliage. They feed on vegetable matter, including seeds from reeds. They cannot reach below about a metre underwater, and as most of their diet comes from aquatic plants and reeds, they will only use relatively shallow lagoons. They construct nests on small islands or even floating reed beds, and both males and females share the 40-day incubation period. The Akara Tea Gardens lagoons are freshwater, but the black swan is equally at home on salty or brackish waters. Not far from Hervey Bay is the regional town of Maryborough on the Mary River. Once a year in September, the streets are closed to celebrate a special Mary Poppins festival. It's held on a Sunday and combines with the weekly markets for this very special event. The reason for the Mary Poppins connection is the author of the Mary Poppins stories, Pamela Lyndon Travers, was born in Maryborough and spent her early childhood days here, but was then known by her real name, Helen Lyndon Goff. Helen Goff was born in this building in Maryborough in 1899 to an English father and a Scottish mother. Her father was a bank officer and a heavy drinking rogue, while her mother suffered from anxiety and depression. The young girl, who was destined to become a famous author, took refuge from her troubled home in her imagination. She spent many hours of solitude in the backyard and told fairy tale-like stories to her younger sisters. She felt that the author should remain anonymous and only her works should be known. Maryborough is having none of that. They're proud of her achievements and celebrate them every year with the Mary Poppins Festival. Not everything for sale here has a Mary Poppins connection, but the carnival atmosphere is contagious and thousands turn out to walk the streets and have a good time. Most folks try hard to fit in with the festival theme, dressing in outfits such as those depicted in the Mary Poppins stories. Mary Poppins dolls are everywhere. P.L. Travers, as Helen Goff was known, had a very unhappy childhood. Her father was first sacked from the bank for excessive drinking and then died in the same year. She moved to Sydney and became a Shakespearean actress before moving to England. Her first book, Mary Poppins, was published in 1934 and quickly became a favourite with children the world over. The Mary Poppins Festival is a great opportunity to roll out the restored chariots of yesteryear.
'Cause today I started loving you again. I'm right back where I've really always been.
The main event for the day starts just before midday when a costume parade of characters from the Mary Poppins stories turns on a street parade. In the original book, the benevolent nanny, who seemed to be surrounded by magical events, was not the sugary sweet character depicted in the famous Disney film, but more of a stern authority figure with a good heart hidden under a tough exterior. In total, P.L. Travers wrote 8 Mary Poppins stories. The last one was published in 1988. The author died 8 years later at the age of 93. As midday approaches, a crowd gathers in front of the town hall clock. Mary Poppins is present, of course, and at least one of them is the official one, who will be involved in the ceremony to follow. At noon, the town crier calls everyone to observe the firing of a cannon to coincide with the stroke of 12 on the town hall clock.
My lords, ladies and gentlemen. As the clock starts to strike, we light the cannon.
The cannon firing seems to be borrowed from the film and has now become an entrenched part of Maryborough's way of telling the world that P.L. Travers may have lived most of her life in England and wrote enchanting stories about early London, but it is here in Queensland that she was born.
Just a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down in the most delightful way.
Hervey Bay is one of the best places in the world to go whale watching, but you need to be here between August and November. Judging by the crowds, it seems as though half the country descends on Hervey Bay during the whale watching season. Although none of the charter boats can guarantee a whale sighting, it has become such a common occurrence at this time of the year that hundreds, convinced that they will not be disappointed, line up every morning to board one of the many boats.
We too join in the excitement on a fast catamaran which has been especially fitted out for whale watching. There's an air of expectation among the passengers as we zoom out of the bay to travel for about an hour to the Hervey Bay Marine Park. It's a perfect calm sea which should make it easy to pick up the whales. The course we are on takes us alongside the western beaches of Fraser Island, the world's largest sand island. Humpback whales travel north each year from Antarctic waters to have their calves in the warm tropics. They drop off at Hervey Bay for a break, and this is where we hope to see them. We travel quite close to the northern beaches of Fraser Island before swinging into the more open waters of the marine park. By now, tension is mounting as all eyes scan the horizon in search of whales. The expectation is quite high. The first sighting is made and an exciting cry goes out. Enthusiasm is contagious. It's a cow and a calf. The sighting is short-lived and we move on in search of more whales. We are not disappointed. A huge female turns on a spectacular show, slapping her pectoral fins hard onto the surface of the water. Humpback whales can dive for up to 30 minutes, but usually last only around 15. They can dive to a depth of around 200 metres. Humpback whales grow to about 16 metres long, weighing between 27 and 45 tonnes. The females are slightly larger than males. The four-chambered heart of the average humpback whale weighs almost 200 kilograms. This is the first time we have seen whales this close anywhere, and always wondered what the fuss was all about. But when standing on the deck watching these magnificent animals engage in what appears to be play, the sensation is unexpectedly awe-inspiring. Humpback whales are seasonal feeders that filter feed tiny crustaceans, plankton and small fish. They alternatively swim, then gulp a mouthful of plankton or fish. An average size humpback whale will eat between 2 and 2.5 tonnes each day during the 4-month feeding season in the cold waters of Antarctica. I had not anticipated how moving our encounter with these 40-tonne giants would be. But by mid-afternoon it's time to return to port. Next we go snail hunting. We return to the Bruce Highway and head north to the small coastal town of Burham Heads.
All of us when we were children probably went to the beach at one time or another and picked up seashells like this on the shore and made our own little collection. But there are some people who just never give up collecting shells. What they're looking for are perfect specimens, like this one here. But you don't generally find them here in the high tide area. You have to come here when the tide is completely out and go out and get the ones that still have the animal living in them. They make perfect specimens, and there are people who do nothing else but that. They're keen shell collectors. Now here at Burham Heads, we've met a man who's not just a shell collector, but he goes out snail hunting too.
From the outside, the home of Jim and Lynn Ferguson is just like any other, but the inside has been turned into one large display area. Here, these two shell and snail collecting enthusiasts spend all their spare time cataloguing their collection of more than 5,000 specimens.
Their hobby, which Jim readily admits is more like an obsession, was always about seashells until they found some snail shells in 1985. These turned out to be a species which is only found much further south in New South Wales. The mystery was solved when it was revealed that they had hitched a ride in some pot plants. Jim and Lynn both became keen on snails and are now recognised as two of the foremost collectors in Australia.
Lynn takes care of the meticulous record keeping, while Jim organises the collection in their preservation cases. Although it's the flamboyant colouring of the seashells which impress most visitors, it's the snail shells which offer the most excitement for Jim and Lynn. We have more than 10,000 species of snails in Australia, and there are at least 2,000 yet to be identified. Compared to other parts of the world, Australia is a snail collector's paradise.
Shells like the sensational cowrie are so highly valued that they were used as money in some Pacific islands until recent times. These shells, about the size of a man's fist, are from snails. These phenomenal examples may be the giants of the snail world, but it's the smaller and more elusive ones that leads the Fergusons to embrace their hobby with such total dedication. Jim undertakes field trips at every opportunity. Snail hunting has taken over his life. All you need is a keen, experienced eye and lots of patience. It soon becomes obvious that the bush is literally crawling with them. In dry times, they hibernate, but Jim knows where to look.
Those two there are the same species as that there.
Scorpions like the same hiding places, so Jim must keep alert.
Most of the time they don't expect to find anything new, but because Australia is so relatively untouched as far as snail collecting goes, the possibility of making a new discovery is always there, and it's that possibility that drives the Fergusons.
Snail collecting has been one of the most rewarding hobbies that I've ever had.
Why so?
Well, you don't know what you're going to find, you don't know the distribution of them, and it's just so rewarding. It's hard to explain, but it's a good hobby. Unusual, a lot of people don't do it. There's 3 or 4 of us across the whole of Australia doing it, but there's so many thousands of species yet undescribed.
And now that's what you like, the idea of maybe finding something
New. We found, between me and my mate, we found over 600 new species. That is a lot of new species in snails. So it's rewarding. We're not looking for glory, it's just the fun of it.
Jim turns over a lot of logs in a day, but quickly points out that they're put back again so as not to destroy the delicate habitat each one provides. He records the exact latitude and longitude of each find, along with environmental details, which are correlated for future reference back at home when new specimens are added to the collection.
Next stop, Bundaberg.
After spending a few days with the snail hunting Fergusons, we head north, following once more the Bruce Highway. Roadside paddocks of sugarcane are more common now, which heralds our arrival at Bundaberg, the heart of the sugar country. Bundaberg began as a small settlement in 1866 when coffee and sugar were planted. It's a thriving city today, situated just 14 kilometres from the mouth of the Burnett River. Most Australians know Bundaberg because of Bundaberg rum, which is produced from the sugar which is grown in this area. But Bundaberg was also the hometown of Bert Hinkler, the famous pioneering aviator who in 1928 flew the first solo flight from England to Australia and landed it here in his hometown. It's not hard to see that he's their favourite son around here. We have the Hinkler Mall, we have the Hinkler Centre, there's Hinkler Avenue, and behind me here in the main street is a statue honouring Bert Hinkler. Herbert Hinkler saw flying service in France and Belgium in the First World War and was later to become a squadron leader in Italy. But his love of flying began as a youth when he read all he could about the new and exciting business of heavier-than-air flying machines. In 1910, he becomes a member of the Aero Club in Brisbane and within a year builds his first glider. His family and friends also become caught up with his enthusiasm. His test flights are family affairs. He becomes obsessed with flying and over Christmas 1911 commences construction of his second glider, which he test flies on Monrepo Beach near Bundaberg. It seems inevitable that such a pioneering spirit is destined for great things. After 6 years as a test pilot in England, he accomplishes his most renowned feat. He flies solo from England to Australia. The trip is fraught with danger. He struggles to stay awake on long ocean-spanning legs of the journey and carries out navigation with the most rudimentary of equipment. He lands in Bundaberg, taxis to his mother's house, and is idolised by the whole town. His place in history is assured, but within 5 years is killed in Italy attempting a second similar flight. Today, Hinkler's English house has been moved to Bundaberg Botanical Gardens, where it houses a museum to honour his achievements.
Also in the Botanical Gardens, visitors can relax by taking a steam engine ride around the gardens on a genuine cane train. Steam engines like this one were the workhorses of the early days of sugar growing. Stacked to capacity, the heavily laden trains carried hand-cut sugar cane to the mills.
The single most important move in the development of the sugar industry was the introduction of the Pacific Island labourers, the Kanakas, in 1882. Without the contribution made by these Melanesian workers, it's unlikely that the sugar industry would have survived. The men were supposed to be willingly recruited, but in fact many were press-ganged into service and brought to Queensland to work almost as slaves. Their workdays were long and the toil hard. Their final knock-off bell pealed across Queensland in 1903 when Kanaka labour came to an end. By now machines were helping, but hand-cutting of cane remained part of the industry right through the 1960s. In spite of predictions to the contrary, white workers, mostly Italians, adapted well to tropical conditions. Sugar is now Queensland's major crop.
Although the practice is no longer carried out in all parts of Queensland, The fields of cane are still burned in many places, providing a sensational spectacle. The cane fire is lit around dusk when the winds subside. The field is lit on all sides and quickly moves towards the middle where it almost appears to explode just before it extinguishes itself.
If you went and burnt that next year, you get a terrific amount of...
In the morning, the mechanical harvesters move in. These Australian-designed inventions make rapid work of the old back-breaking cutting process. They cut the tops off, cut the stalks at ground level, then chop the cane into short lengths called billets. The billets are deposited into bins ready for transport to the mill, and all at a rapid rate.
The cane billets make their trip to the mill by modern diesel-powered trains. Here, each bin is weighed. The quantity of cane and the ultimate yield of sugar is tracked and credited to the farmer. The mill at Bundaberg has been in use for a long time and still uses much steam-driven equipment. The process involves crushing the cane to extract the sugar-rich juices. It passes through a number of processes to remove dirt and other impurities. When the muddy juice has been cleaned and concentrated, the syrup is about 65% sugar. The syrup is now boiled down so that crystallisation can take place. The crystals are grown to the desired size, which is about 1 millimetre across. The result is raw sugar, and lots of it.
The best known byproduct of sugar production is rum, and here the famous Bundy rum is made from the thick molasses left over from the sugar mill next door. Tours of the distillery provide an insight into the process.
Molasses is the major ingredient in licorice, golden syrup and treacle. 1 litre of molasses converts to be 1 litre of rum when it's gone through the whole process. So it's a pretty good ratio. When it leaves the mill, they've extracted most of the sugar from it. It goes to the Bundaberg sugar refinery, and we get what's left over, and even though it's had most extracted from it, it still runs at about 50% fermentable sugars, so it's still pretty sweet. The other 50% is 25% water, 15% is inorganic salts, and 10% is made up of anything else that happened to be in the field at the time of harvest.
The distilling process has its tradition in old colonial days, but modern technology is used to control quality. The final product is matured in wooden vats, which hold 60,000 litres each. Each tour of the rum factory ends up with a visit to the on-site bar, where it's time to taste the product.
Next stop, the town of 1770. Moving further north, our next stop is the town that appears to have been given no name but a number. In fact, the town of 1770 is named after the year of 1770. We quickly establish our camp in the caravan park and set off to investigate.
The year 1770 is quite significant for Australia because that's the year in which Captain James Cook sailed all along the coast in the Endeavour. And he rounded this head of land here on the 22nd of May 1770, anchored in the bay here and stayed for just a couple of days.
This point of land is known today as Round Hill Head, and in many ways it differs little from when Cook saw it. The Endeavour anchored in the bay in 5 fathoms of water on a fine sandy bottom. During the course of their visit, the explorers noted many things, among them the palm nut trees, which they had not seen since they were in the tropics. Cook and his party explored the bay thoroughly, including the inlet around which the small township nestles today. 1770 is a quiet spot popular with fishermen and holiday makers because of its protected waters.
On a hill overlooking the bay is a cairn commemorating the occasion of Cook's visit. Cook noted the abundance of fish in the bay, the mangroves lining the shore, and spotted and shot a bustard which the crew declared was the best bird they had eaten since leaving England. Cook, as a result, named the place Bustard Bay.
To gain a higher perspective on Bustard Bay, Mel and I climbed to the summit of the Goonga Lookout.
There are lots of wildflowers on the side of the track, quite obvious are these bright red ones here. When Joseph Banks came this way with Captain Cook in 1770, he collected specimens for more than 30 new plant species in this area, even though they're only here for a couple of days.
Once at the summit, we can appreciate the size of the bay, and nestled in the inlet, the town of 1770.
The town of 1770 offers a picture of perfect tropical tranquility. Cook and Banks may not have been here long, but there is little doubt that their impressions of this spot, along with others like it, contributed to their glowing report of the east coast of Australia, which led to the first European occupation 10 years later. Next, we visit a colony of artists. With 1770 behind us, we head north toward Gladstone. An artist colony sign catches our attention, so we drop in. Here, surrounded by a large area of bushland, owners Norm and Zena Cameron have created a peaceful environment in which various artists can work.
Norm explains that it has taken them more than 15 years to build the unusual village of studios and that the process is ongoing. It's late in the afternoon and most artists have finished work for the day, so Norm asks us to stay on for the night. Over a barbecue dinner, we have the chance to meet the varied mix of artists who have their studios here. With morning comes the chance to have a good look around. The central feature is a gallery building, just one of the many built by Norm. The work on display and for sale here is always changing, but it gives the artists who cannot always be here at work an opportunity to sell some of their creations.
The grounds have been laid out like a small village, taking advantage of the naturally contoured gully in which it is set. Each building represents a separate studio for each artist within the community.
All kinds of artisans are represented here. Belinda Waugh is both a potter and an artist, whose work reflects her Indigenous connections. She is only too pleased to meet visitors and discuss her work.
Mel Williams, daughter of Norm and Zena, works here every day and is the only full-time artist in the colony. She also runs the gallery. Mel studied art in Melbourne and is delighted to be in a position to work within such a creative environment of artisans. Norm and Zena Cameron came here as a place for Norm to work on his bush furniture, but it quickly grew into the colony.
In 1992 we bought the property firstly to build a showroom for Norm's furniture. We had to move out of town because we used to work from a small garage and it was starting to get a bit noisy.
Well, one of the ideas that we had was to have a place where people could develop their art and work as artists. We wanted a place where it wasn't, where you could work without it costing you money and where you could I guess, be creative. But it was a lot about doing something, putting a little bit into the community and by way of developing an art culture in Gladstone, because Gladstone had a lot of talented people but they don't have anywhere to sell their stuff or to show their stuff. If you want to be an artist, there's nowhere where you can where you can exhibit your work without the gallery wanting an arm and a leg for it. We wanted a place where new artists could exhibit their work. Hopefully we could make some money at selling the art, but also it gives them exposure, gives them a chance to have an exhibition.
Sculptors work here too, and some, like Troy Maunder, make a lot of noise with his chosen tools of trade. Luckily, surrounded by bush, such noises are of no concern, and he can concentrate on the creative side of his work. Artists come and go, but usually leave something as a reminder of their stay.
I think it's pretty good.
This impressive creation is the work of sculptor Paul Adamson, who still works here but now has moved on to making precision miniature bronze statuettes with a technique known as lost wax process.
This is a finished wax, and what I want to do is turn it into bronze. So that's the finished one. So first of all we have to make a rubber mould. This is a rubber mould. This is a wax copy from the rubber mould. The plaster on the back here supports the rubber mould because it's quite flexible. You can see it's very flexible. The plaster supports it. From there, what we have to do is we have to sprue it, what we call spruing it up. We have a wax cup. We attach the wax cup to that firmly with a hot iron, and then using this as an example, we stick it to the side like that. Assemble all the pieces. For example, the wheel goes on, and again, it becomes attached to this wax post. When it's all assembled, you have to dip it in a refractory material, which is a heat-resistant material, and then that is built up over many layers. When the layers are complete, the wax has to be removed, and this is where the expression lost wax comes from. The wax is heated and runs out to the bottom of the mould, and then when it comes time to pouring bronze, it's inverted. The mould is heated to 800 degrees, the bronze is melted to 1050 degrees and is poured down through this funnel and fills up the cavity. When that's done, it's all separated, it's cut off here and ground back, and then it's coloured, and we end up with something like this, and that's how it gets to bronze.
Paul's work is world class and is now in great demand by leading art dealers throughout the country.
One of the most unusual buildings Norm has built here is this non-denominational chapel. He decided to build it for his daughter Mel when she announced she was getting married. It's now in demand almost every weekend for weddings by other couples. All too soon we come to the end of a full day at Cedar Galleries.
Well, we've said farewell to our new friends and set off early in the morning to head to our final destination, Rockhampton. Rockhampton is situated right on the Tropic of Capricorn. Last time we passed through, we hadn't allowed enough time to look around. On this occasion, we intend to take more time, but must leave you now until next time, when we'll resume our great caravanning odyssey here in Queensland's tropics.